Okay.
The Afterlife Wrestling Federation. For over 100 years, the revolutionary force in slam-bang Western-style wrestling. Yes, folks, we're back. 3 weeks ago, we did a look at Saints and Sinners. This time, the Afterlife Wrestling Federation went to one of the old Madison Square Gardens up there and put on a special Thanksgiving show called WarGames because, well, that was the main event. I'm your main reporter, Andrew McHale, being joined by SK Greene. Greene,
Yes.
after looking at this event, I think it was 4 hours well spent. How about you?
I think so too, because you got to understand that there's always going to be really good work on this one. It's always the reason why I had to invest in that Ouija board to get the information from what's going on in these shows.
Call your local medium or other satellite operator. You might actually get to see it.
Yes.
Now, as a reminder, this is the Afterlife Wrestling Federation. Everybody involved is in some way dead, and we make no value judgments. Only dead wrestlers need to apply.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, we pretend that this is being run by the great Vincent J. McMahon in the style of the World Wrestling Federation. So we have no apologies for our style.
Yes. And of course, we remind you that this has no viewpoint of who and what goes to the afterlife. People like Jimmy Snuka, Chris Benoit, Fabulous Moolah will also go in, as well as anybody else who lived a good life.
We make no value judgment. We just have wrestlers.
Yeah, we don't focus on anything. We don't believe there's any firm religion based on this one. We believe there is one book that says all the answers that are needed in this world. And that book, of course, is Dianetics.
Wait, I thought it was the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I think that might be one as well.
Okay, good. So, we were all ready to begin, and we started with a special bonus match for the fans at home. A huge 10-man tag team elimination match. Always a great way to start. Check out these teams, by the way. Ricky Dozan, Shinya Hashimoto, the Golden Boy, Arnold Skaaland, and the Fabulous Kangaroos on one side. On the other, you had the Macho Man Randy Savage, Killer Kowalski, Dr. Death Steve Williams, Johnny Valentine, and Blackjack Mulligan. Kind of strange that these had to be put on the special show, but it's always nice to have a present for those who are taking time out to watch live. And I think that matches captained by Ricky Dozan and the Macho Man is a good present.
Yeah, and that usually what does work for these ones, because on the same time you have the case that Ricky Dozan being on the early show was a problem, but the Raw's roster is really booked hard there, so
that's kind of the way it is. So here's how this match went down. First elimination was Roy Heffernan fell to the Oklahoma Stampede of Dr. Death. Killer Kowalski with the Iron Claw made Arnold Skaaland submit. Blackjack Mulligan delivered a huge lariat to Al Costello. Suddenly, the two Japanese legends were 2-on-5, but Ricky Dozan had nothing to worry about. He went on a tear, eliminating Johnny Valentine, Kowalski, and Williams back to back to back. Mulligan and Randy Savage had him in trouble. Hashimoto was begging for the hot tag. Ricky Dozan wasn't even looking his way until he got thrown into the corner, and finally Hashimoto just tagged himself in and became a house of fire. He was able to get the elimination on Mulligan, but Ricky Dozan tagged himself back in and ran out of gas. Randy Savage with the double axe handle to pin him. Came down to Randy Savage and Shinya Hashimoto, and the Macho Man got the edge with a flying elbow to be the sole survivor. Thought it was really interesting. The two Japanese legends who have been trying to form a tag team lately didn't seem to be on the same page. You're the reporter for the Monday side. You tell me, what did you see?
Well, the big problem on this one is that since Shinya Hashimoto joined the Afterlife Wrestling Federation, he's always been in the position as a young lion to Ricky Dozan, who believes himself to be the ace of Japanese wrestling throughout this time. Hashimoto has been deferential to him, like many top Japanese stars would be. But over the last few months, it seemed like Hashimoto's ready to ask for the car keys himself, and it seems like Hashimoto doesn't have any respect for his protege and isn't ready to say, "Okay, I'm letting you go off on your own and be a star," like he did to people like Mitsuharu Misawa on the SmackDown brand.
Yeah, I was about to say, it seems like the relationship between Ricky Dozan and Hashimoto doesn't quite mirror that of Misawa and Saruta on the other side.
Yes, and that's gonna be a big question going forward if Hashimoto can fall in line and realize he still has more to learn, or if Hashimoto finally says that yes, he's ready to take control himself. Or even if Rikidozan says, you are disrespectful to me and I'm not giving you anything more.
Meanwhile, on the other side, you've got Macho Man Randy Savage, who really, ever since he lost the title about a year ago to Rikidozan, seems like he doesn't know where he's going, doesn't know what to. He hasn't really been focused much. A match like this isn't going to change things as far as his focus, but you have to wonder if this might be something that will get him back into contention for Nick Bockwinkel's title down the line, or it'll get him a chance to try and run through the giant.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is going to be a big question mark, and it really ties into whether the world title match that was a question mark between Dusty Rhodes and Nick Bockwinkel comes to pass, because Savage just doesn't seem like he's ready to turn face in order to work with Bockwinkel, but it doesn't seem like anybody on the face side of the roster is going to do anything for Savage at this moment.
It kind of lost in between. Makes you wonder maybe if the post-Easter trades are going to help him out any.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he does seem like he'd probably be better off on the SmackDown brand than the Raw brand.
All right. Well, with that match done, we went to the closed circuit broadcast being shown around the cosmos, and it opened with a match that a lot of people are looking forward to just because there were so many favorites in this one. It was tag team on tag team warfare. You had two teams of 5 teams, if that makes any sense. The teams you had representing the red side, Owen Hart and Brian Pillman, the British Bulldog and Jim Neidhart, Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude, Spike and Spot of the Moondogs, Blue Demon and Argentino Roca. Representing the blue side, you had Kerry and David Von Erich, the tag champions. You had Buddy Jack Roberts and Terry Gordy of the Freebirds, Paraguayo and Hector Garza, Gory Guerrero and El Santo, the original Perea Atomica, and Jay Strongbow and Wahoo McDaniel. 20 of the top talents that we had. I mean, we were lucky we had 2 rings for WarGames. We kind of need them to keep everybody away from each other.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and this is a very big match that has 20 people on it and is big enough so it doesn't need to just be a pre-show match in this world, unlike in other places.
So it all started, a very hot start, everybody brawling, but at the end, the weakest team, the Moondogs, were the short end of the stick. Kerry did the discus punch and pinned Spot, first team out about 4 minutes in. But then the Hart Foundation just took over, using their great coordination. The fact that they had 2 teams representing them within this match definitely helped. One by one, they came off the top rope on Jay Strongbow. Eventually, Neidhart with a diving tackle got the pin. It's 4 teams on 4 teams once again. At this point, things kind of settled down. You had all sorts of different interactions and a lot of dream matches that people really wanted to see. I can tell you right now, there was a ton of excitement in the air when Roca and Santo stood across from each other, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, the Atomica got the advantage. They held off their opponents. Rick Rude submitted to the camel clutch, and things looked a little weird because I think that somebody missed their cue in the back. I don't want to say anything because it was only after Rude and Hennig were eliminated that we had a surprise run-in.
Mm-hmm. Yes, apparently coming up from Purgatory was Tom Zenk making his debut. And I saw that there were a few big names on the Purgatory takeover this week that did not make the card. So there were some people who were being thought of as possible promotions there.
Yeah, and that was one of a lot of people were pitting Big John Studd for the call, but instead it's Tom Zenk. Mm-hmm. He, Hennig, and Rude take on the Hart Foundation, lay them out, and Neidhart is pinned. So all of a sudden it's 8 on 4, but 4 teams on 2 teams if you want to think of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
We went back to the Lucha Well, gave the fans really what they were excited about. A lot of high-flying action, a lot of crazy ins and outs. Eventually, Blue Demon with the shoulder breaker. Off the top comes Roca with the body press. And now it's 3 teams on 2 teams as the Atomica are eliminated. Dory and Santo show some sportsmanship to Demon and Roca, but as they're leaving, Perros Del Mal and Rayo and Garza come up from behind. They double team Roca. The vicious and infamous Martinete to Argentina Roca by Perro and Rayo, and now it's Owen and Pillman against 6 other people. At this point, things were looking pretty bad. But the good news is that Owen Hart and Brian Pillman, very, very strong wrestlers, strong veterans, have been around for a long time. They quickly isolated the weak member of the opposing team, which was Buddy Jack Roberts. They wore him down. Owen put on the sharpshooter. That was one team gone. Then Perros Del Mal tried to get down Owen and Pillman. But if you know anything about those two, you know that Flying Brian earned his nickname for a reason. He was able to keep up with Pedro Alayo Jr. Very impressive. Eventually, the springboard clothesline, the air Pillman on Hector Garza. And now, after 40 minutes, it was Owen Hart and Brian Pillman versus Kerry and David Von Erich. And man, what a matchup that is. And they delivered. The Von Erichs had a lot of time to rest with all of the shenanigans going on. Owen and Pillman known for their stamina. And for the next 15 minutes, back and forth action, a ton of near falls, a ton of saves, great double teams. It didn't look like either team would back down. Near the end, Owen and Pillman double backdrop David over the top rope. And unlike with some federations, that's not a DQ in the Afterlife. Yeah. Owen followed with a big dive that left Pillman alone with Von Erich. Pillman went for another clothesline, but Kerry caught him into the backside. That's how he won the world title on Earth. And Kerry and David, after a full 55 minutes, were the sole surviving team. This got a lot of plaudits as a match. It was very exciting. Really blew the roof off. A great idea for an opener.
Yeah, this was one of those you want to see on this one. Even the Afterlife Wrestling Observer editors and Horace Greeley and George Jones gave this a 4.75, but Greeley has said he would have given it 5 stars if it was in the West.
I'm curious, is there a West in the Afterlife?
I'd have to assume so.
Yeah, this was the match of the night right here. All-out action, a lot of really no time to slow down. You had storyline advancement with all of the luchas. You had a debut in Tom Zank. You had new feuds being set up like Hennig, Rude, and Zank against Pillman, Davey Boy, and Neidhart. That if those 6 collide, that's going to be something else.
Yeah, and that's probably the interesting one where a lot of people said Big John Studd may be looking at a call up, and I believe they may have had a videotape of him on this pre-show who's during this one with new head of it, Larry Matisic, as one of the joining people, like Mike Hogewood as to join it. So it would be possible that Studd's called up, but I think Zank fits a role more on the roster, much like the surprise of Rosie getting called up to team with Jamal. And on this one, you need people who fit a role, and the Robbinsdale connection seems to be a good role to fit.
And we'll definitely see where that goes in the future. The next match was from the Red Brand, and it was a 5-on-5 elimination. You had Pat O'Connor, the Intercontinental Champion, still possibly down from that eye injury, though he didn't show any signs of it. You had Ultimate Warrior, a fast-rising, popular star who knows where he's going to wind up. Louis Spicolli, Dick the Bruiser, and the Crusher, the recently turned #1 contenders to the tag titles. And on the other side, you had Gorgeous George with his butler Chavo. You had the man they call Vader, and you had the Grand Wizards trio of Ernie Ladd, Jamal, and Rosie. A few issues in play here. Jamal and Rosie obviously attacked Bruiser and Crusher after tag team turmoil. Gorgeous George gave Pat O'Connor that scare with the eye injury. Ultimate Warrior and Vader, of course, had an incredible match 3-4 years ago. Oh, I'm sorry. It was 3-4 months ago. Vader's hasn't been in there that long. Yeah. So you have a lot of talent here. You have a lot of excitement here. Going into this, how did you feel about this match?
Well, like I said, you pretty much hit the nail on the head that there's a lot of things going on here. The one surprise is that you have Ernie Ladd in this match, because Ladd seems like someone who'd be being even big on WarGames to help against Bobo Brazil, but Ernie Ladd is just angry. He's mad. He wants the title back as well. So,
and the important thing is that Ernie Ladd being managed by the Grand Wizard and not Bobby Heenan, so he didn't quite fit the theme there.
Yes.
This one, Luis Piccoli didn't really stand a chance, and he got pinned in much less than 3 minutes by Rosie after the double splash. And it was kind of unfortunate. I was hoping for better. Ultimate Warrior came in. He was the house of fire that was needed. He and Vader just exchanging blows. Great stuff. Ladd loaded up the thumb. It looked like he was going to aim for Warrior. He missed. He hit Vader. Warrior took advantage. It's 4-on-4 now. Vader and Ladd start arguing, but Vader's hatred for Warrior surpassed his disdain for what Ladd did. He turned around, crushed Warrior, gave him the Vader bomb. Is he part of the Grand Wizard's army now? Is that what's going on?
I think that he may be on this one. I did see the next night on Raw, they did mention that Vader was now part of the team, and that just adds another dominant performer on it. Seems almost short-sighted because a lot of people were hoping that Vader and Gorilla Monsoon would become a tag team there, but the Grand Wizard needs a huge rogues gallery as well, and it's possible that the Grand Wizard and the Heenan family could have some challenges themselves on it now. 4 big guys like Ladd, Vader, and 3 Minute Warning could be a big deal.
Yeah, Ernie Roth seems to be stacking up a Land of the Giants type roster right now. It's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
In a very good way, mind you, but still, that is what it is. So Ernie Ladd picked up the pieces, gets the pinfall there. It's 4-on-3. I just realized we forgot to put Vader on the roster on our Google Doc. We apologize for that. I'm working on that right now. Mm-hmm. 3 Minute Warning came in, and Dick the Bruiser was more than ready for this one. Very exciting. The crowd was definitely into it at this point. But if you were hoping for a finish to this, well, I'm sorry to say that they would not deliver one this time around. Everybody brought to the back that the attempts by O'Connor and by George to get their teammates back didn't quite work. Mm-hmm. And we had 4 countouts at once, and suddenly, if you can call anything that involves the Survivor Series sudden, it was Ladd and George on one team, O'Connor on the other, and I really don't like Pat O'Connor's chances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this was actually one of the cases where it's even more interesting for this one because you had Ernie Ladd beating the crap out of O'Connor, trying to get his title shot there. But just as Ladd had it all set, it was Gorgeous George who picked the bones to get the pinfall. And on paper, this is not going to be good for these things. Yeah, I'll just tell you what I saw the next night on Raw as well.
If you're going to tag yourself in with Ernie Ladd, you better have permission. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Pat O'Connor now is lost to Gorgeous George, and Gorgeous George has a claim at the title. Ernie Ladd is not happy that Gorgeous George took this pin from him because he wanted to pin the champion, and now Ladd hates George as well. And to make matters worse, the night after on Raw, you had Gorgeous George going to Bobo Brazil and asking him to protect him from Ladd, and Bobo doesn't seem to like George enough to do that, so this is going to be an interesting one. I've heard rumors that 12 days you're going to have a triple threat match, and I could see it happening.
Yeah, we'll see where that goes. This match really, the major countout took most of the starch out of it, unfortunately. Only 2 1/4. I'm sure that the guys can do better with given better planning and more time, but there was a lot of story in this one.
Yeah.
The next match came from the SmackDown Blue brand and was SmackDown. It was the ALWF champion Buddy Rogers teaming with Chris Benoit and Gotch Style Frank and Carl against Lou Thez, Junkyard Dog, Jumbo Tsuruta, and Mitsuharu Misawa. Okay, everybody at home that starts seeing one of these things is not like the others. We know. Mm-hmm. This match got off to a hot start. The Gotchas and the Pillars were the opening salvo. It had a very good mini match. Misawa pinned Frank with the Tiger Driver to go to 4-on-3. Carl tried to hold his own, but Saruta and Junkyard Dog combined for a battering ram because we all know JYD's head is really solid. The Dog gets the pin. It's suddenly 4-on-2. But when you have Buddy Rogers and Chris Benoit on that side with 2, there's no panic. There was no concern. Benoit wore down Jumbo Saruta, got the crossface, got the submission. Now it's 3-on-2. And then chaos broke out as the fight went to the outside. At one point, Rogers and still hanging around Gotch were double-teamed Junkyard Dog, dropped him on the railing. He looked like he was done for the night, but, as he was not the legal man, it didn't really matter. Meanwhile, the people who were the legal men, Benoit and Masawa, both got counted out. So on one side, you have Buddy Rogers. On the other side, you have Lou Thesz, and in theory, Junkyard Dog, but he's being helped to the back to see if he can continue. This meant that Rogers and Thesz could rematch in a mini-match. Thesz tried his best, but Buddy Rogers is just too slick, too talented. Got the figure 4 on, got the submission. He thought he had it won, but at this point, Junkyard Dog started staggering out from the back, and I used that word on purpose. Mm-hmm. He wanted to finish the match. He wanted to go out with somebody forcing him out by pin or submission. Rogers seemed more than happy to oblige, worked him over, set up for another figure 4, but Junkyard Dog had been watching his Ric Flair tapes, apparently. He got the inside cradle, he got the 3 count, and this is big. Junkyard Dog has pinned the ALWF champion, Buddy Rogers. And Rogers was none too happy with it, in large part because he thought Dog had been helped to the back. He thought that was a forfeit. Mm-hmm. Now, I was able to see one of the big segments afterwards. Rogers complained to Sam Muchnick, the SmackDown general manager, if you will, said that there should have never been a continuation of the match, that he should have been declared the winner. And not only was Muchnick not really into hearing that, on the next TV show, on the Tuesday television show, it was headlined by Buddy Rogers and Junkyard Dog for the title, and we'll have a report on that later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that seems like it's a question mark, because you'd think if Junkyard Dog gets a big win like that, that might be something to consider as a 12 days match as well. So
it caught a lot of people off guard, I know, but well, you'll see what happened down the line. Mm-hmm. I'll just leave it at that. Like I said, we'll get to that later. That match was a 3-star rating, felt pretty good for itself. The entertainment, the entertaining finish, sort of the storyline behind it. What did you think?
Honestly, it seemed pretty straightforward to me on this one, where it's one of those matches where you're still building up the story and going there. It was good to add a new challenger for Junkyard Dog there, and that helped things out a lot. So,
all right, the next match, Andy Kaufman came out. Andy Kaufman has been saying he is the toughest celebrity in the afterlife. He has challenged anyone who has had a movie career or a television career to step up and to take him on because he could take them all out. He was probably thinking, somebody like a John Wayne would do it, or someone, somebody along those lines. I can guarantee you he never saw this coming.
I think so, Greene, but I thought that Savio Vega is still alive.
Where are you getting that from?
Well, they had some mystery in his character, right?
Well, yeah, but so?
Oh, buttons. Just had to assume these ones. So, who would go after Andy Kaufman? Here is the question.
Given that Jerry Lawler's still alive, that narrowed it down quite a bit, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess who it was? Bruce Lee, and the crowd loved it. Bruce has done some great demonstrations of the martial arts, and now he's here to shut Andy Kaufman up. And boy, did he ever. In less than a minute, a huge flurry of chops and kicks, followed by the 1-inch punch. Kaufman was down. Bruce Lee had shut him up for now.
Yeah.
And this is huge. I love the fact that Bruce Lee is willing to work in the pro wrestling business here. It's somebody who has made a name for himself in fighting movies, so he understands the ideas, and it's somebody who has a great following and who has great credibility.
Yes, not only that, but if it's wondered why Bruce Lee could show up, he was considered by many in America one of the founding fathers of mixed martial arts as it is. He was considered, rumored to be, if he had lived, it would have been Bruce Lee versus Muhammad Ali in the famous match. And in Shea Stadium, which went through. And given that Bruce Lee had these ones, one, he would have been willing to work the match, and two, he probably would have been willing to not use Antonio Inoki's famous get on ground and lie like a porn star, then kick like you're a toddler having a temper tantrum thing that ruined Muhammad Ali's legs and ended his career in boxing, basically. That could have been, it would have been a much bigger match if he had lived. You would have had Inoki not in the picture, so Ali's career could have survived, and he may have been washed up by 1983, but having this match could have been the difference between washed up in 1983 and never a champion after 1978, and you could have had a strong chance that you could have seen Muhammad Ali versus Mike Tyson there.
Yeah, a lot of what ifs there. The boxing world certainly suffered when Ali was unable to continue. So Bruce Lee, a big get back to this, a big get for this organization. Is he going to be a regular, do you think?
I think I've heard rumors from Greeley and Jones that Bruce Lee is under a Mick Foley contract on Earth where he gets 2 matches a year and any storyline times to build to them. I'm not sure if this was a preview of that one and that he would have 2 matches going on from now on, but that's apparently what the rumor is.
In that case, as a special attraction, that's a very good get.
Yeah. And I think there's rumors that Muhammad Ali may be signing a similar contract to Lee as well, so that adds even more to the mix.
Well, there's something for Easter Rebellion in 2019 if they decide to go that way.
Yes.
Our next match had a pretty good story behind it, which is that the former tag champions on the blue side were the Big Daddy and Billy Robinson. In August, Robinson surrendered the titles and his allegiance to Big Daddy and joined the Sandow Corporation, consisting of George Hackenschmidt, Robinson now, and the Gold Vest duo of Toots Mondt and Ed Strangler Lewis, all managed, of course, by Billy Sandow. Mm-hmm. So Crabtree, the Big Daddy, decided to get his own team together. He got Jack Briscoe and he got the Zabisco brothers, Stanislaus and Vladek. Mm-hmm. This match, of course, a lot more old school, a lot more grappling than probably the audience was used to, but this was all sort of backdrop because we knew that at the end we wanted to see Big Daddy get his hands on Billy Robinson.
Mm-hmm. And that's also a plus because Big Daddy was always kind of limited in the ring, so the old school brawlers could help him out there as well. So
definitely. This match was we started with Ed Lewis getting the better of Vladek, applying the stranglehold to get the first knockout. Stanislaus followed soon after due to Hackenschmidt's new finisher, a top rope brain chop that he calls the Hack and Slash. Love that name, by the way.
Yeah.
But Briscoe and Big Daddy were not to be denied. Briscoe isolated Ed Lewis, got the Oklahoma Stampede on him for the pin. Toots Mondt tried to get the better of Briscoe, but the hot tag to Big Daddy, he didn't last long. The big splash eliminated Mondt. It's now 2-on-2. Hackenschmidt did his best. Sandow tried to help with a chair, but the referee caught him attacking Briscoe, and Hackenschmidt was disqualified. And with Briscoe incapacitated on the sidelines, Big Daddy tagged in, and the only person left for the corporation was Billy Robinson. This was the moment the fans waited for, and they were not disappointed. Big Daddy threw him around, slammed him down, smashed him in the corner, finished with a big splash, and Crabtree and Briscoe were your survivors for this match. Not the best of matches. It got 2.5, but it was all about the satisfying ending. And now that Crabtree has gotten even with the Sandow Corporation, where does he go from here, do you think?
Well, honestly, that's really the problem with Survivor Series matches, where Survivor Series has always been kind of a bonus match where you get some satisfaction, but you don't get any real satisfaction. Like, Big Daddy did manage to get some satisfaction taking on Billy Robinson here, but I don't think the fans in the Afterlife are going to be happy until they see a one-on-one match where Big Daddy can finally beat Robinson, and Robinson has no excuses for it. Like, I know on SmackDown I heard that there was a promo where Robinson claimed that, yes, his team was beaten and he had allies with him, but if it was one-on-one, Billy Robinson would have beaten Big Daddy easily. So,
well, let's hope they get that final match. At this point, there was a very interesting interview that I saw with the Heenan family. They were playing up that, Dusty Rhodes had won the title shot, and here he was putting on line in WarGames. And Bockwinkel interrupted this point and said, "Oh, hold on a second. I wish to address some of the controversy here. Yes, it is true that technically Dusty Rhodes is the top contender to this, the ALWF Universal Championship that I hold proudly. But let's not kid ourselves. Everybody saw the results of that match. Everybody saw the outside shenanigans, both by his friends, but also, I must admit, by some of the people I stand with here. There was no even match in there. There was no even fight between Dusty Rhodes and Andre the Giant. I'm glad he's putting his shot on the line so that he can prove that he can win in a fair fight. But I don't think he's going to be able to win in a fair fight. I have the class, I have the ability, and I will make Dusty Rhodes surrender his title shot because I am the best that you have ever seen." Isn't that right, Heenan?
Mm-hmm. And that is really the big point on this one, because it's very interesting with Nick Bockwinkel, where he's clearly hiding behind Andre the Giant, but he doesn't seem like the typical cowardly heel. Bockwinkel does seem like a high-class man who would gladly give you a title shot if you beat Andre the Giant. But good luck beating Andre the Giant.
Very true. The next match, this is one elimination match everybody was ready for because it had been built up so well. Gary Hart's cadre of Devastation Incorporated, led by the original Sheik, who had a blood vendetta with Roddy Piper going on. Then, we saw it on TV. Vern Gagne was giving a TV title shot to Eddie Gilbert when the Sheik, Freddie Blassie, and Mad Dog Vachon all attacked. Gary Hart revealed the Devastation Incorporated. But Piper now had Gagne as an ally. They talked about it. They said, "Okay, you go find a teammate, I'll go find a teammate, and we'll work together, and we'll take them down." Vern Gagne went out and got Bruno Sammartino. Roddy Piper went out and got Road Warrior Hawk. I'm not saying the two have different philosophies, but I don't think that's what the other guy would have chosen.
Mm-hmm.
But here we were, rough and rowdy. Roddy Piper, Vern Gagne, Bruno Sammartino, and Road Warrior Hawk taking on Devastation Incorporated, the Sheik, Freddie Blassie, Mad Dog Vachon, and Eddie Gilbert. Okay, it's not entirely clear if Eddie Gilbert is part of Devastation Incorporated, but Gary Hart seems to be recruiting him right now.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem...
That question mark it is because, of course, Eddie Gilbert is still looking for people to be in Hot Stuff International, so it'll take a lot of time for Gary Hart can get him to go past that as well.
Yeah, the only person really who would qualify for Hot Stuff International is Steve Williams. Everybody else is still in the morning realm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good. So who knows how that's going to play out? But I'll tell you what didn't help. Gilbert was volunteered to start against a very angry Roddy Piper. And if you've ever seen Roddy Piper when he's very angry, his opponents don't last very long. Gilbert tried to escape to the top rope. Piper crossed him up there and draped him from the top rope to a devastating DDT. And within a few minutes, Eddie Gilbert was gone.
Mm-hmm.
This started a much better 4-on-3 match. At one point, Road Warrior Hawk had the better of the Sheik, climbed to the top rope. Gary Hart had the referee distracted. The Sheik produced his mysterious fire. Hawk was wiped out and pinned, and it was 3-on-3. Roddy Piper was furious at the fire being used, tore into the Sheik. They tumbled to the outside. They picked up a bunch of chairs. This wasn't going to last. Both men were DQ'd. It's 2-on-2. During the chaos, Freddie Blassie grabbed some brass knuckles from Gary Hart, nailed Sammartino with them, got the pin. Now it's 2-on-1. Gagne against Freddie Blassie and Mad Dog Vachon. He did his best. In fact, he even got the better of Vachon. Went to the top, a missile drop kick, shades of his son Greg, got the pin, and it was Gagne against Blassie. But at this point, Vern Gagne was tired. He wasn't able to continue very long. Brainbuster by Blassie. And Freddie Blassie is pinned the television champion, and you got to think that makes him a future contender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's been interesting on this one because it also seemed like a styles clash with Vern Gagne simply because Gagne is a very technical wrestler. He's very scientific. He's very amateur styled. And this match as a whole was just a huge brawl. This was extreme, but in the world of the Afterlife.
Yeah, I did appreciate how Gagne was able to hold his own. Was able to punch and kick his way through it when he had to. Certainly, he didn't lose the timing. He understood the timing of the comebacks, was able to make it very believable. I was very thrilled with that.
Mm-hmm.
That match is a 3.5-star match, and it was after the match that things got interesting because Gary Hart tried to call the Sheik back out, but Roddy Piper came out instead, swinging his chair, clearing the ring. Sheik tried to get in. Piper held him out. Both men were bleeding. Don't ask how that happened. And then Piper had a microphone, and we all know that's where the good stuff begins.
Mm-hmm.
And Piper basically said that he was sick of it. He was sick of the Sheik's antics. He was sick of Gary Hart. He was sick of everything. He wanted to make sure that the Sheik got what was coming to him, and that nobody and nothing was going to get in his way. And then he looked up, and he saw the double cage that was going to come down for WarGames. And he said, you know, I got an idea. Sheiky, baby, next time we meet, you're not going to have anyone interfere for you because I'm going to put it in a steel cage. But I'm going to do better than that. Because I know you're still going to find a way to bring stuff in. You're still going to bring that pencil in. You're still going to bring that fireball in. And I want to have equalizers. So you listen to me right now. Guys, I want you to put chairs on that cage. I want you to put crowbars on that cage. I want you to put a chain on that cage. Hell, I want you to put barbed wire on that cage. And I want for us to be able to take it down and to get each other to death with it. But you remember something, Sheik. I'm like James Bond. I don't die twice. Gary, I'm sending your main man to hell. But I'm the only one coming back.
And this is going to be a very interesting match on this one. I believe that this match was invited by the Afterlife Wrestling producer and backstage court worker Stanley Kubrick, so it's gotten the backstage viewpoint of Clockwork Orange House of Fun.
Yeah, a name that, as you remember, Raven invented when he, back down in the Mortal Realm, although I don't think they're going to use that technically.
Yeah.
Because, as you know, Raven has a certain style to him that definitely does not mesh with either the Sheik or Piper in terms of personality.
I don't know. I think Piper and Raven may have had enough drug use to come up with that name, so...
It's possible, but I don't see them using House of Fun. Calling it a Clockwork Orange match, I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
And then we got to the main event. And, oh, man, what a main event it was. Both captains came out for the coin toss. And there was an interesting wrinkle this time.
Yeah, keep in mind that the Afterlife Wrestling Federation has a different rule that we've seen in the mortal realm to the immortal realm. Unlike in other worlds in the mortal realm where the coin toss is always done backstage, and by an astonishing coincidence, the heel always happens to win the coin toss. Not sure about how lucky they get to be there, but in this one, there's a difference. The coin toss is done live in front of the fans, but similar to an NFL team coin toss for the game, where you can choose whether you want the win or whether you want to get the ball first. You can
choose Marty Morning Leg, neither.
Yeah. You get to choose one of two options if your team wins the coin toss. Your team can either get the man advantage, or you can choose one person on the opposing team that must start the match.
And think about what an advantage that is, to be able to disrupt your opponent's game plan.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And that would be as equal on it. Like, you may lose a man advantage, but if you can say, okay, I want this person in the ring first, that helps out hugely for stamina purposes.
Absolutely. And so the captains came out. Bockwinkel, as champion, got the right to call the toss, and he lost. For the first time in his history, Dusty Rhodes has won a coin toss at WarGames. And now he had a decision to make.
Yep, and this was when it was his first toss, but Rhodes knew he had this match set. He knew it was his signature match. He knew it wasn't afraid, but Dusty Rhodes also knew that what Bobby Heenan would inevitably plan, the same thing he always did, and that would be have the goons go in first, have Andre destroy everyone on this one, and then have Bockwinkel come in and pick the bones afterwards. But Dusty did something that no one could have expected. He said, we've got to fight him anyway, so we want the fairest fight possible. So Dusty chose the first man, but instead of what you'd expect, he chose to call Andre the Giant out to go first.
Yeah, you would have thought he'd put the champion out there first and worn him down, just make him suffer as much as possible. But to have Andre in the match the entire time, that was a little dangerous.
Well, that was basically what you'd see as the logic here, because on paper with Dusty, he knew that all likeliness would be the first three people go in, Andre goes in fourth, and then Bockwinkel goes in fifth. And Dusty then knew that if he called out Bockwinkel first and had him go in, then Bockwinkel goes out first and he gets to beat him up as much as he wanted to. But he knew Heenan was going to put Andre in fifth and he'd have no chance of winning then. But if he goes with Andre first, yeah, he's still got to beat Andre. But there's always been questions about Andre the Giant's stamina, and that meant that you have a chance of weakening Andre for the match end.
Well, that was and on top of that, now, if you're Dusty Rhodes, and listen to the team he assembled, by the way, himself, Bobo Brazil, Shohei Giant Baba, and Gringos Locos, Eddie Guerrero in the bar. Now, the Heenan family is represented by the champion Nick Bockwinkel, Andre the Giant, Ray the Crippler Stevens, and Eddie and Jerry Graham, just so we have all the names out there. But back to the Dream Team for a second, back to Dusty's team. You have that quintet waiting for you, and you have to choose somebody to spend 5 minutes alone with Andre the Giant. That's not an easy choice to make, and that's really not something you want to assign to somebody. But who do you give the honors to?
And this was pretty much obvious, where you go with the one guy who could probably match Andre the Giant, the one guy who's been able to go one-on-one with the Giant and come closest to beating the Giant clean, Giant Baba.
So here we go. Andre and Baba had 5 minutes, 2 rings, and 14 feet of humanity between them. For the first 5 minutes, it was, I mean, the stare down lasted a full minute, and the crowd was just on edge waiting for something to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They were back and forth. It looked like Baba had a slight edge right around the 5-minute mark. And as you know, that's when the man advantage kicks in. Here came Ray Stevens.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and this goes to the same thing as what WarGames goes to. You have double team moves, Andre and Stevens destroying him, Stevens using his heel work, and Andre just using his power.
We saw the Dream Team all chomping at the bit, all of them waiting as the clock ran down. And I don't know if this was Dusty's plan, but Eddie Guerrero sprinted out of the locker room, maybe a couple of seconds early, so he could hit the ring as fast as possible.
Well, this was probably a good plan with this one, because remember, there is, with Ray Stevens, you have a great heel, but you may have the problem of the tag team ones, but Dusty knew he'd have anything, but Eddie Guerrero was one of the few men on this group that could match up Stevens' heel work, so.
Yeah, and remember, there's no disqualification when you set foot inside the WarGames. So Eddie brought some of his stuff. Stevens had some of his stuff. They were ready to bloody the heck out of each other. Mm-hmm. And it looked like the Dream Team was turning the tide, but those 2 minutes go so fast, and in comes Dr. Jerry Graham.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and then you have some more things where you have Jerry Graham going after Eddie Guerrero and keeping on that fight as well, but you also have the same things going on. And this is pretty smart with how the Heenan family picked up this one and reworked it, because you still keep 2 people on Baba and you keep going there. So Bobby Heenan was a very good coach in this environment, and he knew how to adjust his plans even after the most inadjustable thing there was.
Yeah, that's one thing to be said. They don't call him the brain for nothing, kids.
Mm-hmm.
When it looked like the Heenan family had Eddie down and out, in comes Art Barr to even the sides, and this led to one of the most mind-blowing moments right near the end of the 2-minute period. I cannot believe I saw this. Baba and Barr had got Stevens and Graham down on one side. They helped in on the other side. They start lifting Andre the Giant. They get him on the top rope, and I don't know how the ring contained this, but with the help of both Baba and Bar, they pulled off a 3-man powerplex on Andre the Giant. Eddie adding the frog splash right at the very end. Crowd was going crazy. Everybody was down. It was a great way to end the 2-minute period.
Yeah. It was almost surprising that they had this cage big enough just to be able to handle Andre and Baba in that move as well. So
that's what happens when you have 2 rings. You can do that sort of thing.
Yeah. I'm just talking about height manners, but more than anything. So.
Well, here's what you have to remember: is that we're using the size that has been official with both World Wrestling Federation and New Japan of a 20 by 20 ring, and going across from along the diagonal, that is about 28 feet. So there was
the height of the cage is what I'm talking about. So.
I see. Anyway, as the time ticked down, in came Eddie Graham. He went right after the very tired Bar, who had just used all his strength on that big moment. And really, the Heenan family took advantage again. And it's no surprise at this point. Gordon Sully was talking about it. He was not surprised in the least that we were looking at Nick Bockwinkel as the number 5 guy. There is one thing he was talking about, though, which is he was surprised that Dusty Rhodes hadn't entered yet. As we know, Dusty is one of these guys who leads from the front, who leads by example. So the fact that he was holding himself back kind of caught Gordon Sully off guard.
Yeah, and that was one of the things where it was weird on it as well, because Dusty Rhodes is a man who leads from the beginning as well, but he also had to be smart here because Dusty Rhodes has the most to lose here, and he's putting his world title shot on the hands of 4 other men, so he had to make sure he was as fresh as possible to have the best chance of keeping his title shot.
Exactly. But we didn't have to wait any longer because Dusty called his number 4th to make it 4-on-4, and he bloodied both Grahams up with elbows. It was beautiful. It was exactly what you expect from WarGames. And having that edge, having that fire, he was able to keep them both down. And that meant when the countdown clock began, this is a big one. When the countdown clock began, he was able to turn around, face the door, and you could hear him saying, "Come on, Nicky, do your worst with me. I'm ready for you."
And that is very interesting for it. And they knew that Bockwinkel was heading out, and Bockwinkel already had his prop from starting. Heenan gave him something, and that was all you needed for it.
Yep. Bockwinkel used another object. Dusty's bleeding because this is WarGames. Everybody should bleed as much as possible. In fact, 7 of the 10 people wound up bleeding when it was over. The 2 Giants didn't because as Giants they're a lot more durable. And the last man in didn't bleed because he didn't have enough time to.
Yep, and that's
and there. At 5-on-4, we saw James Dudley and Bobby Heenan getting in an argument on stage, which meant the last man in, Bobo Brazil, began the match beyond. And man, there were a lot of close calls in the match beyond. Let me tell you.
Yeah, and that's always the cases where you have this much bleeding, this much dominance, and everybody was weakened to the point where anyone could have gone through. You still had the tag teams fighting. Dusty couldn't be torn off Bockwinkel. Andre and Baba keeping each other occupied, and it seemed like it was bad there as well.
Yeah, Bo Brazil and Ray Stevens fighting on another side, just chaos everywhere. And the big surprise was when Dusty almost got the figure 4 on the Giant. I think everybody was hoping he was able to complete that step over, but Andre was fighting it with all his might. Couldn't quite get it done, and that almost cost him in the end because he was wide open for a brass knuckle shot from Ray Stevens.
Yep, and that was also the problem because you nearly had this ending for Bockwinkel getting this one and trying to go for the kill there, but just as he did, Coco butt from behind on Bockwinkel, and he kept doing it and kept doing it.
And with Bockwinkel dazed from Brazil, suddenly you had Eddie Guerrero looking around. Somebody had snuck a chair into the cage. We never know how that happens. Delivers the shot. Both men drop down, so there's no confusion because Eddie Guerrero has old habits that die hard. Dusty quickly got him back up and reminded him there was no DQ. Guerrero got up, put on the El Paso lasso, and you could hear Bockwinkel say, "Okay, enough, enough."
Mm-hmm.
And the Dream Team won, which means that Dusty Rhodes will get his title shot against Bockwinkel, sort of.
Yeah. You see, after the match, Bockwinkel clapped for them, said they defeated him, but at the same time, he said that Dusty Rhodes had kept having all his title shots by winning with friends. He beat Andre with friends. Tonight, he fought and beat Bockwinkel, but at the same time, Bockwinkel recognized Bobo Brazil's Cocoa Butts on him led to him nearly losing the kill there, and Eddie Guerrero was the man who got the pinfall. So Bockwinkel was the one who was willing to honor it as well. Bockwinkel made it clear he will have him one-on-one, no Heenan family member anywhere at ringside at 12 days. But in exchange for that, Dusty had to defend his title shot against Bobo Brazil and Eddie Guerrero. Winner got that match with no Heenan family member there.
That is huge. And you can see going forward, we've got, we already have, those two matches have been announced. 12 days, for those who are not familiar, takes place over the Christmas New Year's section. I think it's scheduled for the 29th, 30th, and 31st this time around. Each brand, both the blue, the red, and the up-and-coming brand will put on a show. A big deal. A lot of people enjoy it. Already for the red show, we have 2 matches announced. As you said, it is a triple threat. Dusty Rhodes, Bobo Brazil, and Eddie Guerrero. And then the winner has to turn right around and challenge Nick Bockwinkel for the Universal Championship.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we also had it pretty much announced on the TV shows where you'll have Pat O'Connor, Ernie Ladd, and Gorgeous George for the Intercontinental title.
That's going to be a great triple threat. Can't wait to see how that one turns out. Meanwhile, we promised we'd get back to this. Now is the time to do it. On the Tuesday Night Titans show, the one led by the SmackDown side, the match between Buddy Rogers and JYD. Sam Muchnick himself, as of now, the leader of the commissioner of the blue brand, was watching from ringside. We all thought, okay, we're going to see how this turns out. We should have seen this coming, guys. We really should have seen it coming. Rogers threw something in JYD's eyes as Muchnick had the referee distracted. Muchnick dropped back down. Rogers applied the figure 4, and Muchnick threw a towel in, saying that JYD wouldn't be able to continue. Even though, as soon as Rogers released the hold, Dog rolled over and started standing up, wondering what the heck happened. Vincent J. McMahon is looking this over. I would not be surprised if he fired Muchnick after something like this. It is a scandal and a travesty. And, I'm sure Rogers would say that getting favoritism like this couldn't happen to a nicer guy, but he's definitely the minority there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to find out how that turns out, provide updates at later shows. Also on the Blue Brand's contribution to 12 days, we have, of course, the Clockwork Orange match. Rowdy Roddy Piper and the Original Sheik. Somebody's got to win this one. I don't know if there's going to be much more than a survivor rather than a winner, but everybody's looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Final star ratings, as we mentioned, the tag team extravaganza got 4 3/4. Team George versus Team O'Connor was 2 1/4. Team Fez over Team Rogers got 3. Bruce Lee over Andy Kaufman, no need to rate it, lasted a minute. The Big Daddies over the Sando Corporation, 2.5. 3.5 for Devastation Incorporated over Rough and Rowdy. And the WarGames got 4.5 stars. Kind of an upset that it wasn't match of the night, to be honest with you, but that shows just how much talent there was out there. All in all, a fantastic show. A lot of rave reviews and a lot of stuff that makes you want to see what happens next.
Yep. This is going to be interesting. So,
and we're going to keep our ears to the ground to see if Gagne is going to have to defend against Freddie Blassie. Find out if this is where the Bruiser and the Crusher get their title shot against the Grahams. Who are the Von Erichs' next challengers? And are the Hart Foundation going to be facing off against the Robbinsdale Connection? They've got a 4-on-3 advantage. Where do you go from here?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of interesting things going on, folks. Thank you so much for listening in to the WarGames Report. We will be back later to provide updates on the 12 days show. SK Greene, any final thoughts?
Nope.
All right, that's what I like to hear. This is Andrew McHale saying thank you so much for paying attention. We'll see you next time.